Now then, you lovely people, we're going to have a foray into microphone techniques, and specifically in this episode we will be looking at dynamic mics, condenser mics, and we will also be looking at the effect of the room on said microphones and looking at some of the artifacts and things that, if we're not careful when we're using said microphones, occur. Let's get the rock on. Welcome to Ogman's Adventures with Microphones. Like I mentioned earlier in the introduction, we're going to be looking at comparing the dynamic and condenser mic and the effects of the environment on the recorded sound. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to ding the bell. Right, hit the pause button. Go and get yourself a pen and a bit of paper. Don't forget, when I think it's a good idea to make some notes. Some of this stuff you won't be able to do at home because you don't have a big 7 metre by 5 metre room to prat about with your microphones and things in. But there's nothing to stop you experimenting in a different room environment, even if you've only got one mic. You'll need a decent length cable, or you don't even need headphones for it. It's just a case of listening back. You'll learn more from doing experiments like this than you will out else, really, because you're not under any pressure of having a band around you. So let's compare these two microphones, a dynamic and a condenser. We'll start off with the dynamic. So you can see there the basic bits of a dynamic mic are a magnet, a coil and a diaphragm. And from our physics lessons at school, we know that when a magnet's moved close to a coil of wire, electrical currents induced or generated in the wire. Now, if we attach a diaphragm to this lovely coil of wire that we have over here around said magnet, when that diaphragm moves, what it'll be doing when it's moving is it's reacting to sound pressure waves or sound waves or air pressure or whatever you want to call it today. And when it moves backwards and forwards, it'll be generating a voltage. So the only hassle with this is when the current is output from the mic, it's tiny, and this is one of the drawbacks of a dynamic microphone. This is the reverse of how a speaker works. So let's have a quick look at headphones as a microphone. This is my absolutely shocking impersonation of Bane, that bloke who has that big thing over his face. But you can see we use headphones as a microphone. Steaming me glasses up. So we'll start this adventure with the veritable Shure SM57, generally known as an instrument mic, but there's loads and loads of singists use these. Mrs. Bjork, Mr. Bono, Mr. Kiedis, and the first time I ever saw Mr. Lemmy singing was using one of these mics, and the main reason he was using it is because it is a little bit of a hypercardioid mic, and it doesn't tend to pick up all the racket that's going around on stage until you put your gob right in front of it, which is always a good thing for live. So what we've got here is we've got what we call a frequency response graph. See down the bottom end, 20 Hz, that's the lowest frequency we can hear with a human hearing system. And up to the top 20k, very doubtful if many people over 40 have got 20k left in the lugs. But what we can see, this red plot is telling you where the frequency pickup of the mic is rolling off. So we're rolling off just before 200 Hz there, and we've got a lift between 4k. Well, just around, it's starting to lift up at 3k. This is what we call a logarithmic scale. That's all to do with decibels and phons and that, but not the phones, but phons. We'll look at that later on if anybody's interested why that is the case. Anyway, that's the frequency graph. This is engineered into the mic to give a little bit more intelligibility on like what we would call presence. It's up around, your 4 or 5k. Right, so And this is the condenser mic, what we will be looking at. This is the veritable AKG C100S. They've been around years. They're proper budget, conscious mic with loads of little frilly bits. You can see it's got an on-off switch. This top bit screws off and you can shove a battery in there, so if you don't have phantom power, which is one of the requirements of a condenser mic, you can still use said microphone. Right, the big deal with these is condenser or capacitor mic. Condenser mics is, our American friends call them a capacitor, a condenser, or we call a condenser a capacitor. It's a bit of the tomato, aluminium, aluminum thing. The thing with condenser mics is they're well known for the sensitivity, but they also, as I've mentioned already, need phantom power. They work with two plates acting as the capacitor. So this is the capacitor bit here, there. You can see with my little pointer thing. We have a front plate, or the diaphragm, and a back plate. And generally, the back plate is like kind of the solid bit, and the front plate, the diaphragm, moves backwards and forwards. In relation to the sound pressure waves that are coming in, or you'll see a big effect that can have on the diaphragm with a thing called plosives we'll be discussing later on. They make the diaphragm out of all kinds of thin stuff. Obviously it's going to need to be thin stuff, and one of the things, as you start getting your hand in your pocket for mics, is the user gold spluttered mylar. Sounds dead expensive. The diaphragm detects the change in air pressure, which is a representation of the sound being captured. The movement of the diaphragm next to the backplate changes the voltage flowing through the circuit, and this change in electrical signal is the electrical output of the acoustic sound. So basically you've got a circuit that goes right round, and when this diaphragm, this front plate, moves closer to the back plate, we get a change in the voltage that's passing through. It's detected by a bit of circuitry. You can see there we need a battery for it to work. So frequency response of this lovely little mic, we can see it's rolling off at roughly the same frequency, but it's not rolling off as fast. There's two graphs here, and there's two graphs because, oh, sorry, I just missed this little line here is what we call, when we go in close onto the mic, we get a free bass lift. They call that proximity effect. We're going to have a look at that later on. So one of the other cool things with the C1000s, we get two extra bits with it. We get this PPC1000. I love all these names in music tech, these like big long names. Makes you sound dead intelligent. I always remember doing a gig, or going to a gig with the drummer of a band that I was in, who could never remember what they called XLR cables and called them XRI cables. And it was, we wondered, why did you do that? He said, oh, I thought it was a Ford thing. Very good. I do love our drummers. Slipping this on changes the polar pattern. We're going to look at polar patterns in depth on another video, but I just want to do a little introduction to them today because I think it's all part of the gig that is microphones. So it changed it from a cardioid to a hypercardioid. There's also a presence booster that's working between 5K and 9K. It's a bit high up really for presence. And it gives you an increase of about 5 dB. This is to optimize intelligibility of speech. So let's get them plugged in. First off, we're going to need to engage phantom power. Right, before we get started, let's have a quick look at our signal flow. So when we have a look over here, I'll just move these cables out of the way. You can see there's two red switches. Because we've got two microphones, the blue one's going to be the condenser, and the orangey yellowy one is going to be the dynamic mic. If you can see that there's a red button that's depressed, no, it's all sad. You can see next to it, it's not in tremendous focus. See if I move in a bit. Yeah, it's 48 volt. What that means is, we know from our little discussion earlier that we need 48 volt power to power a condenser mic. So here are the two mics. Here's our condenser mic, AKG C100 and a Shure SM57. The next thing we need to do is set the level of our lovely little microphones. Right, I'm just going to set the gain, and the way that we do this, so I'm starting off with the dynamic mic, is we press the solo button. And the solo button on a Ghost console is found here. So I'm just going to talk into the mic, and I'm going to have a little gas away. I'm going to try and get this level, see the level drop down on these meters here. So turn this up, 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 up. Hello, chip shop. Hello, are we all happy? Are we very happy? Yes, we're very happy. So it's just hitting at 0. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the level on the condenser mic. Hello, little condenser mic. So, hello, little condenser mic. I'm just setting the gain to 0, so they're both at 0 dB. So, after we've set our levels, you can see there's a big difference in the two mics. The condenser's coming in at about, I don't know, 46, 47 dB on the scale there. That's how much level we need to boost it with the gain control. However, the dynamic mic is looking up around 54, 55 dB of gain to get the same 0 dB output. That's rough. That's just to show you that the condenser mic doesn't need as much gain as a dynamic mic. If you're looking at rubber mics need even more gain. And the big hassle with this, you'll hear a bit of noise induced in this. This is because we're using Middlesbrough College's lovely Ghost console, but it does start to get a bit noisy when you get above around this 55 dB range. So if we've got delicate little singists in, you can get a little bit of noise on their vocal recordings. Right, let's have a look at the sound within the control room. I'm about 30 centimetres away from the dynamic mic. So I'm just going to wander in a bit, and then now I'm about 15 centimetres away on the dynamic mic. Just going to have a listen to what this sounds like in this environment. 30 centimetres, about a metre. Let's have a look at the condenser. About 15 centimetres away from the microphone. About 30 centimetres away from the microphone. I am now about a metre away from the microphone, and we're just having to listen to the environment in the control room. Next thing we're going to do, have a little look at how the polar patterns affect the sound of the microphone, and we need a little bit more space, so we'll go in there. Right, as I've just blathered on, we are now moved are in the live room. Right, I'm stood about a metre away from both microphones. I just want to have a little listen, a little look, see where I am, about a metre away. Let's have a listen to Mr. Dynamic Mic first. So I will waffle on inanely about the joys of a moving coil dynamic microphone. And now we shall listen to the joys of a condenser mic that requires phantom power. Right, let's have a listen to the polar patterns of the microphones. For this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off at 0 degrees, then I'm going to wander around the mic till I get to about 90 degrees. Then I'm going to wander a little bit further around the mic till I get to 180 degrees. Dreadful pun, sorry. And then we're going to wander around a little bit more till we get to 270 degrees. Then we're going to complete wandering aroundness till we get back to Right, let's have a listen to the polar patterns of the microphones. For this, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start off at 0 degrees, then I'm going to wander around the mic till I get to about 90 degrees. Then I'm going to wander a little bit further around the mic till I get to 180 degrees. That's dreadful pot, sorry. And then we're going to wander around a little bit more till we get to 270 degrees. Then we're going to complete wandering roundness till we get back to 0 degrees again. Right, let's have a little look at these polar patterns that we've just explored. So what we've basically got here is we've got two diagrams, same diagram, just I guess they didn't want to put all 6 measurements. The frequency is that there's different frequencies picked up by the different polar pattern. And the polar patterns are different at different frequencies. So the polar patterns changes with relation to frequency. So this is something that's worth bearing in mind. So we've looked at 125 Hz and we're starting to creep into what we would call omnidirectional there. And as we get higher up at 4K there, and then there's around the like high mid getting into presence area, it's starting to become a little bit kind of what we would call hypercardioid. Now with the C1000, done the same routine, but what the deal is here is that's without the adapter on, that's with the adapter on. We haven't got the adapter on. I just thought I'd put both so you could see what the difference was. We can see that the polar patterns are changing quite a bit. I don't know why this bit's all cut out here. I suppose it looks pretty though, you know. And it's like we're looking at the degrees as we've already analysed and walked around. I will be doing another video on a large diaphragm condenser that analyses this in more detail with specific polar patterns that are designed and built and available in the mics. Right, let's have a little listen to the room ambience with the Shure SM57. Right, I'm approximately 7 metres away from our lovely little microphones. What we should have going on here is you should be hearing a little bit more of the room sound than you do of my voice, the direct sound, what the mic's picking up. I am now at 6 metres away from our lovely little microphones. I am now 5 metres away from our microphone. I'm now at 4 metres is an interesting one. I'm right in the axes of the room, so we get a little bit of a null on the bass here, a couple of other weird things going on. I'm going to move forward to 3 metres and you can hear the mics are starting to pick up a little bit more of the direct sound than they are of the reverberant sound in the room. Going to go at 2 metres here. Oh, it's like social distance. I've never noticed that my feet are actually, when I take a stride, it's a metre by my own inbuilt measuring stick, like a COVID measuring. Anyway, get back on with the task. So 2 metres away from these lovely little microphones, and we are starting to pick up a little bit more of the direct sound. I am now at 1 metre, and you can hear that we're getting more of the direct sound than we were of the reverberant room sound. I'm now at about 50 centimetres. We will be starting to get some plosives on the microphone, so plosive dynamic mic, plosive condenser mic. Right, I am approximately 7 metres away from our lovely little microphones. What we should have going on here is you should be hearing a little bit more of the room sound than you do of my voice, the direct sound, what the mic's picking up. I am now at 6 metres away from our lovely little microphones. I am now 5 metres away from our microphone. I'm now at 4 metres is an interesting one. I'm right in the axes of the room, so we get a little bit of a null on the bass here, a couple of other weird things going on. I'm going to move forward to 3 metres, and you can hear the mics are starting to pick up a little bit more of the direct sound than they are of the reverberant sound in the room. It's going to go at 2 metres here. It's like social distance. I've never noticed that my feet are actually, when I take a stride, it's a metre. So I have my own inbuilt measuring stick, like a COVID measuring. Anyway, get back on with the task. So 2 metres away from these lovely little microphones, and we are starting to pick up a little bit more of the direct sound. I am now at 1 metre, and you can hear that we're getting more of the direct sound than we were of the reverberant room sound. I'm now at about 50 centimetres. We will be starting to get some plosives on the microphone, so plosive dynamic mic, plosive condenser mic. When I talk about artefacts, what I'm talking about is things that we maybe don't want to pick up in the room sound. And what I've done is I want you to be able to hear this better, so I've altered the level of the tracks when we're listening back to them, just so you can hear the artifacts and the effects that are picked up in the room better. The whole idea of this video is for you to go away and copy this video and do it yourself, so you can learn from the clobber that you've got at home. So, plosives caused by air being too close to the microphone, specifically the diaphragm, and it's the diaphragm with too much velocity causing an increase in the sound. We'll have a look at that in a sec. Proximity effect is the change in the frequency response of the microphone when you move in close. I'm moving in close to the mic now, and you can hear I'm getting a boost out the bottom end of my voice. Hopefully it's not popping. It's not the case for all microphones. We'll look into that in another video later on. So let's have a listen to some of these artifacts. So we've already had a listen to these both mics, but what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little bit of analysis with good old Cubase. What's cool with Cubase is if you go into the open up the channel strip, we've got this little window here that we can analyze the spectrum of what it is that we're listening to. So we've got 20 Hz to 20K. And another thing that's really cool is I'll have both mics on at the same time, but what we can do is we can, I'm currently selecting the Shure SM57, but I'm comparing it to the C1000. So I'll just let this play through. I'm going to stop at a couple of points and mention a few things. Right. Let's have a look at these plosive things. If I get in close on the mic there where I'm talking away, we're getting all kinds of horrible racket going on because we're in dead. Right, can you see how much bottom end is coming out of the red? That's the condenser, because it's really good at picking up low frequencies. This is the design of the mic, but it's also one of the things that condenser mics are really good at. Dead close, and the air is hitting the diaphragm of the mic, and it's not very good at all. Peter Piper pecked a pick of pickled pepper. That was our condenser. Let's have a look at these plosives here. Peter Piper pecked a pick of pickled pepper. You can see in comparison, the gain is the same. When I've increased the gain on the two channels, they increased the gain by the same amount, of the same amount as they were picked up. And I set the gain in the control room as we saw earlier. There is a little bit difference, and it depends on where and what you're using the mic for. The gain will change. Also, when you alter the gain on a mic pre, one of the things that you will notice is the tonal characteristics of the mic pre may change. ultimately what we're after with a mic pre is gain with just a bit of wire that doesn't affect any of the tonal characteristics. However, there are people who like specific mic pre's for specific sounds. You hear me blathering on all the time about different colours to paint with. So fundamentally we're painting with sound, so it gives you more colours to pick from. Bob Ross would love you. We're increasing the gain a little bit with Ogget's big high volume gob. So let's go back to this condenser with one of these things. This is called a pop shield. Peter Piper pecked a pick of pickled pepper. The pickled pepper Peter Piper pecked was pickled with pepper, and that's what a pop shield's for. It's not a spit catcher. On our dynamic mic, there's our pop shield. There's our pop shield on the dynamic mic. I'm just a little bit close, really. Peter Piper pecked a pick of pickled pepper. Clack, didn't mean to do that. Peter Piper pecked a pick of pickled pepper. As I said before, it's not a spit catcher. It is a pop shield for removing plosives. So that'll give you a good idea of the artifacts that are being picked up. As I mentioned earlier, one of the other things is proximity effect. Right then, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to ding the bell. And remember, what's the most important thing for you that you can take away from this lovely little video? You got any comments or anything? Any questions for me? Bung them in the comments bit. I do reply to all of them because I'm nice like that. What do you want to know next? Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing next with regard to microphones is I'm going to look at polar patterns and how they work and how they pick up sound. So have fun. Your work is done here. Go and have a lovely day and be nice to your fellow people. Bye.